What it do, YouTube? It's your boy DK, and I'm back with another review for you. This time I'm reviewing A Quiet Place Day One, which is, they say it's like a prequel, but it's kind of, I guess it is kind of a prequel because it does take place on the first day that all of this stuff happened. If you're familiar with A Quiet Place, the franchise of Quiet Place Part 1 and Part 2, then you already know that there are aliens that are hunting and killing people, and the only way that they can identify where you are is by sound. So the first two movies, I actually sat and binge watched. I watched them consecutively, and I was like, all right, I get why, I understand why people like these movies. The entire movie is you have to be quiet. That's the whole point. The characters have to communicate with each other through ASL, which I found to be pretty dope because I wanted to learn how to do ASL. But the first two films were about a particular group of people. They were about this family and their journey through everything that's going on. And then you come to A Quiet Place Day One, and it's about a specific person. Lupita Nyong'o plays the character. You find out early on that she has an ailment, and she's in a particular place in her life. And with this happening, it just throws all of that. It just derails all of that. And I gotta admit, her character, no cap, I did not care for her character. She was kind of green. Like, she was real green, but I understand why, but I still didn't like it. I still didn't like her. I felt she was kind of green. But the movie takes place in New York. They don't give a specific year or time period. It's just New York. And she is caught up in a situation that happens when the aliens from the franchise crash land on Earth in New York. And it's basically about people having to navigate through and survive. Whereas with A Quiet Place Part 1 and Part 2, this was way down the line, so everybody had already adapted, where this movie shows how everyone has to adapt. And the one thing I did take away from this movie was if you shut up, you'll be all right. Don't make no noise, you'll be all right. Keep your mouth shut, keep it moving, you'll be all right. That's what a lot of people need to start learning nowadays. Keep your mouth shut, mind your business, you'll be cool. But they did point out some things, not point out, but I did notice some things in this film where I did notice it in the second film where the aliens can't do a particular thing, which I always thought was kind of dope because they never explained where these aliens come from. But this one particular thing that they can't do, it makes a whole lot of sense because it never showed where they come from. And there's this one alien, there was a scene where they were in the sewers and the alien tried to do this particular thing and it died because it can't do this thing. I was like, oh, that's dope. That was really dope because they never did establish that these things could do this. So that was pretty dope. I gotta admit though, I was bored watching this movie. I kind of dozed off. So that tell you anything? But rightfully so, I dozed off because the title of the movie, A Quiet Place. So this is a quiet film. It's very quiet. And you have to be up watching it, paying attention in order for it to keep your interest, which it did keep me interested, but there were points where I was like, So it was a little bit of that going on. There were jump scares in this movie, but it was not super scary because it's PG-13. So it's not like it's gory and whole bunch of horror everywhere and all that, people getting their limbs and arms and all that junk ripped off. It's nothing like that. The scariest thing in this movie are the creatures and the way that they surprise you and attack people and everything like that. But overall, this movie was not scary to me. It wasn't trash, but I wish they had gone a little bit deeper into how people adapted to learning how they have to be quiet in order to stay alive, because Lupita's character gets knocked out, she gets knocked unconscious, and when she wakes up, everybody knows to be quiet. But there was this one scene where there were helicopters flying over the city, and they had a bullhorn. They were flying over the city with a bullhorn telling everybody in the city, don't make noise. You have to be quiet. How did y'all figure that out? I wish they would have went into depth as to how they figured that out. And the helicopter's flying over. I'm like, y'all flying over the city, making a whole bunch of noise with a bullhorn, telling people to be quiet, but y'all not doing that. Y'all making noise in order to tell people to be quiet. But I guess y'all safe because y'all in helicopters up in the sky, high above everything. So I guess that kind of makes sense. And Lupita has a cat, and the cat, I'm not an actor, so I don't know how it is working with animal actors, but this cat was very much a good cat during this whole movie. And I was like, man, usually something happen in real life, animals be the first one to notice something, especially dogs. They be the first one to notice something. So it's just like the cat didn't really sense anything, and the cat didn't warn anybody that something was about to happen. And also, cats are kind of fend for themselves type of creatures. So as soon as something happened, cats, they just take off. This cat didn't do that, unless I'm remembering incorrectly. But this cat didn't do that. So that kind of threw me off. But overall, again, I watched A Quiet Place Part 1 and 2 before I watched this one, so I was kind of up to speed as to what to expect from this movie. And I must say, out of the three, this movie I didn't really care for as much as the other two. But I understand why this franchise is successful, because it was definitely something different. It keeps you intrigued to a certain point, to a certain extent. At least it kept me intrigued to a certain extent. But overall, I would say this is the weakest out of all three films. And if they decide to make another one of these, which if I did my research, I did some research, and if I read correctly, they are moving forward with A Quiet Place Part 3, which will probably have nothing to do with this one, because this one is kind of like a prequel, but it's not connected to the other films. The only connection that this film has to the other two films is Djimon Hounsou's character, because he was in Part 1 and Part 2, and he's in this one. And he's in all three of these movies, I'm gonna assume, for a total of an hour and some change. Because every time he pops up in these movies, it's like he's there and then he just gone. But overall, this was a dope film. I would recommend it if you're a fan of the Quiet Place movies. You probably would want to check this one out as well, just to see if anything connects and how it connects and everything like that. But do I have to see it again? Honestly, no, I don't. If you're not the kind of person that likes movies like this, then you are more than likely gonna luck out by waiting for this to come to streaming instead of going to theaters to watch it. Either way, you're going to be entertained because of the first two films. This just takes it it just turns down a different avenue than the first two films, so you're not really missing out on anything. But overall, this movie was definitely, it was decent. I give it that. It was decent. So on my scale from 1 to 5, I definitely give this movie a 2.5 out of 5. 2.5 out of 5 thumbs up. It's good to watch, but you don't really need to if you're not interested in these movies. And if you want to watch these kind of movies, if the first two movies entertained you, then this probably will leave you kind of let down in a sense. But it was decent enough to watch, but I wouldn't watch it again. But that's it. That's my review. I will be reviewing other films and television shows, and I will be giving you all my reviews to those. So all you have to do is stay tuned. Demetrius, this is DK. I'm out.